Hello there, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for watching Smart 24 TV, a channel that says we drive your business. We are located at Plot 42 Nile Avenue, Kampala, from where we give you the latest business content around East Africa and in Uganda, getting you up to speed with what's happening in the world of business and, of course, educating you on the different platforms on how you can be able to do business and do it big. Now, today, of course, being a Monday, the first week of the day, we get to recap some of the stories of last week and in the financial markets world. We get to, of course, look into the new week and what could be up for you as an investor this week. And remember, to bring you all this is none other than Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange here based in Uganda, but currently giving you a chance to buy treasury bonds across East Africa. Now, with Altex East Africa, we are saying you can buy treasury bonds across East Africa with simply a USSD code *292#. And following the prompts, you can be able to subscribe, you can be able to learn more about the products and get to transact on the different treasury bonds and bills here in the East African market. As per the Altex standards, we are saying that we give you quality, we give you accessibility and affordability, because we start with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings, which is something actually that's benchmarking accessibility to the treasury bond market. Our markets at Altex East Africa open at 8 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. With Altex East Africa, we're saying you can do something new. Well, let's drive you into the business of the Uganda Stock Exchange as per the Friday tradings. On Friday, it was a day of a little bit of decline in the participation as well as the number of trading equities. In aggregate, at least 3 equities participated in trading for Monday, and out of these, we had out of the 18 listings, we had at least the day end with 4 gainers and 2 bottom losers. Nation Media Group coming on top of the gainers. Remember, the Uganda Securities Exchange has 18 listings, 8 are domestic cross listings and 10 are domestic listings, including Stanbic, Bank of Baroda, British American Tobacco Uganda and the like. And they trade on counters that give you value for the long term and for the short term, and especially looking at the capital gains. Now, around this period in March, we are looking forward to the release of the fiscal yearly reports, and these fiscal reports give us the outlook of how different companies have been able to perform in the past one financial year. And they give us, of course, a head start whether they will issue dividends or not, whether they will actually be able to make a move towards increasing value for their shareholders or not. And all that comes at a very stipulated time frame according to the rules of the Uganda Securities Exchange, where we have to at least have these results published in a public newspaper within a month or so of release. As per the trading on Monday, Nation Media Group was the biggest gainer on the day. And when you look into the other top gainers, we had Centum Investments actually gaining the second biggest value of 0.69% at a close of 259.29 Ugandan shillings. The Kenya Airways counter also at least added 0.25% up to a price of 110.34 Ugandan shillings. As well, Jubilee Holdings Limited gained 0.24% up to a price of at least 5,135.38. Now, besides the top gainers, of course, we have some counters that lost some bit of value, and these were just 2 counters. And Equity Bank Limited lost at least 1% from a price of 1,230 to a price of 1,263.3 shillings. And East African Breweries Limited lost 0.76%, closing with a price of 4,976.93. At the moment, when you look at the biggest participants in the day, we had MTN Uganda Well, MTN traded at least close to 1,483 shares, whereas Stanbic Bank Uganda traded at least 50,000 shares for the day, and Umeme traded at least a record 7,139 shares. Looking at MTN Uganda's stock, MTN Uganda came in with a price of 175.0 on Friday and closed at the same price. Now, after trading this volume of 1,483 shares, they had at least a value of 259,525 Ugandan shillings traded on these counter, and the capitalization was still maintained at exactly 3.92 trillion, which currently looks at close to 19.4% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. MTN Uganda currently still has offering at least of 22.4 billion shares on the exchange. That means literally they have one of the biggest shares, number of shares on the exchange. And also as an electronic IPO, they came in 2021, and currently when you look at their pricing, they haven't yet regained their initial public offer pricing, which is something that the investors have always been looking up to. But last year, MTN was able to issue a dividend of 4.7 Ugandan shillings, which actually was something to appreciate about the company, especially given the fact that they had just spent at least 1 year, less than 1 year on the exchange. MTN last Friday closed at 175.0 shillings. However, they began the year at 180.0 Ugandan shillings, implying they have lost at least 2.78% in price since the beginning of the year. And this is, in terms of year-to-date performance, makes them the 9th in that line, the year-to-date performance out of the 18 listings. So this picture gives us, of course, it gives us a picture that MTN has lost value in the short term, because the year has only had at least 2 months and a half go by, but with a value of 2.78% shed off, of course, it's something you can think of as an opportunity, but also something that we might have to worry about, especially for investors who have invested for a longer time at MTN Uganda. Looking at MTN stock, it's one of the most traded on stocks also on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the past 3 months. So that means that people are still interested. People still find MTN stock worth buying or worth trading on. And currently, within the last 3 months, from the 5th of December to the 10th of March, MTN Uganda has traded at least a record 20.5 million shares, making it the second most traded on in the last quarter of 2023. In this period also, they have had on average at least 325,000 shares trade on every trading session, and 9.89 million at least 3.7 billion Ugandan shillings as the value or the turnover within those last 3 months. This 1,483 shares was not the only one they had on Friday. Their last trading day on 9th, that is on Thursday, they had at least 41,000 shares. On Wednesday, they had at least, on Tuesday, because Wednesday was not a trading day, being Women's Day. On Tuesday, they had at least 25,707 shares. And on the 6th of March, they had at least 105,912 shares. So at least the kind of trading we are looking at is not a speculative one. It's a trading which is consistent a little bit. So MTN gives you consistency in trades, especially getting to look into the daily trading. They have always at least a little volume traded every single day, which is something that could give us a very good indication of a good stock for the Uganda Securities Exchange. Well, Stanbic Bank Uganda was the biggest mover, coming in with a 50,000 shares volume. And as well, if you've been following the stock since last week, but Stanbic Bank has been a top mover, but also a big trading some of the craziest volumes we've seen in the past few months. Now, Stanbic Bank Uganda is under financial group Standard Bank, which is the largest financial institution in Uganda, established in 2004 by the Financial Institutions Act of 2004. Stanbic Bank Uganda is currently, when you look into the value of their stock, the 5th most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And in terms of market capitalization, they have at least a 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings market capitalization. Now, this currently represents at least 5.31% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. At 21 shillings, the Stanbic Bank Uganda stock traded at least 50,000 shares, valued at 1.05 million shillings. That is in terms of turnover on the market. Stanbic Bank Uganda currently holds the #1 most traded on stock on the exchange in the past 3 months, where they have at least traded 165 million shares valued at 3.77 billion Ugandan shillings. That might not actually come to you might not come to realization of how big that is until you look at their stock price, because a counter with a stock price of as little as 21 shillings having a volume of 165 million and 3.77 billion Ugandan shillings, that is more than what MTN has with a price of 175. And that shows you how much valuable Stanbic stock is currently on the stock exchange. When we are buying stocks, when we are trading on exchanges, we not only look at the gain in terms of pricing, because actually Stanbic Bank has lost prices because they started the year with 23 shillings. Now they're trading at 21 shillings. So they have at least 2 shillings have been traded off on the stock pricing. But that regardless, the company has a very, very consistent approach when it comes to the volumes. The volumes speak louder sometimes, because that shows you that the company actually offers very good liquidity for investors who are getting out of the company, and those who want to come in, they also find sellers. They're willing sellers all the time. So that's also a good aspect for you to look at as you're buying stocks in the exchange. It doesn't matter which exchange, here in Uganda or whatsoever, but is it liquid? Is the stock giving you liquidity, or you're actually going to have to lock up that stock for 5 years to be able to sell 10 shares? That's something for you to think about. Umeme stock also had at least 7,139 shares that were traded on Friday, and currently Umeme Holdings is having a stock of at least 487 billion Ugandan shillings in terms of market capitalization, making the company the 8th most valuable on the exchange, representing at least 2.41% of the Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. At the moment, when you look at the stock at Umeme, pricing has been maintained at 300 shillings for now close to a month, and actually more than a month. And when you look into the trading, they're currently the 3rd most traded on stock in the last 3 months, coming behind Stanbic Bank and MTN Uganda. Within the last 3 months, they have traded at least a record 18 million shares, and these are valued at 5.03 billion. So making the company have the biggest turnover on the market in the last 3 months as well. On average, they trade at least 85,000 shares per trading session on aggregate. That means at least every trading day they have 200,000 shares, and that's evident from what they had last evening. But the shares currently are determined also by how much the suppliers, the people that already are holding the stock, are willing to let go, which is something that is not being realized at the moment, because in December, Umeme issued a notice of their exit in Uganda, meaning they will be leaving in 2025 after the expiration of their concession with the government of Uganda. And that meant shareholders probably are looking at the the offers that are going to be made by the company as it exits, because there are conditions that must be fulfilled. And that means also that you as a shareholder have a lot of questions to ask, because as a shareholder you are entitled to know if a company is leaving, what is in store for you, and if it's a good deal, why not get into that stock. However, the delisting also has to be something that the company is going to look into this year. Probably by next year, Umeme will be delisted on the stock exchange before eventually closing business with Uganda. In average, that the Yorkshire index declined at least 4.28 points on Friday after losing at least 0.36% of the value, mainly due to the cross listings that lost a little bit of value. And currently they have a 1 week loss on 2.97% on the all share index, and the 4 week loss is currently at least 3.96%. An overall year-to-date loss of 3.47% is also being registered currently on the market. The USE local company index maintained its value at 269.22 points after basically the domestic listings maintained most of their pricings throughout the day. And that's it, my friend, from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Remember to get to buy shares of the Uganda Securities Exchange. It's quite simple. You have to have an SCD account, which you only open either online or using a USSD code *16557#. For online, you go to www.easyportal or .use.org.com, and then you go to Easy Portal. On the Easy Portal, they will be able to give you options to register using your email, your national identification number, and a couple of other details that might be of concern. But to open this account is free of charge. To get stock information is free of charge. You can also get to investigate or find out more, make more research on the stockbrokers. We have 5 stockbrokers in place, so you can choose any that is to your own liking and style. So that's a very simple way of trading. Trading always happens between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. East African Standard Time on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Moving across to Nairobi Securities Exchange, Nairobi also had a pretty mixed day of trading, with a few losses on the all share index that were actually registered. In aggregate, at least 48 companies participated in trading on Friday, and they ended with 16 gainers and at least 23 losers. The HF Group, or Housing Finance Group, led the gainers this time round with a 4.79% share price appreciation, closing at 3.5 Kenyan shillings per share. And this was at a depreciation of 3.5 Kenyan shillings. The Samia Group Africa also had at least 4.29% shed off, and whereas the Flame Tree Group Holdings shed off close to 4.2%, and the TPS East African Serena at least 3.46% was added. On the losing side, however, Standard Group actually had the least value, actually the biggest value that was shed off from their trading price, coming out with at least 10% share price depreciation, down to a price of 9.0 Kenyan shillings per share. Liberty Kenya Holdings at least had 7.77% that was traded off from the trading price on Friday, and East African Portland Company, Cement Company, also shared off at least 7.35%. Safaricom was the largest trader for Friday after a volume of 1.44 million shares was traded, and the Kenya Power and Lighting Company followed with the 505,000 shares volume, and Centum Investments with at least 262,000 shares that were traded on Nairobi Securities Exchange. 81% decline in volume, however, was witnessed, and at least 78% decline in turnover comparing to the trades on Thursday, and 5% decline in the number of deals. Currently, the market capitalization of the Nairobi Securities Exchange is 1.83 trillion Kenyan shillings. At the moment, also the NSE All Share Index, like I mentioned earlier, dropped 0.88 points of that value and closed at 117.89 points. And they, when you look at the current overall year-to-date loss of, we have at least a year-to-date loss of at least 7.52%. And at the moment, the other remarkable indices like the NSE 20 All Share Index and the NSE 25, they both had a little less value, with the NSE 25 shading of 0.46% and the NSE 20 shading of at least a value of 0.36%. That's currently the market information at Nairobi Securities Exchange. Remember, we are in a drive to integrate the East African capital market, where we shall have a one-stop center to see that we have trading happening in one place, and we remove the barriers to trade across borders in East Africa. And Kenya, rather, the Nairobi Securities Exchange has a big say in that, because it's not only the oldest but the busiest stock exchange here in the East African land. So we are hoping that comes through quickly so we can advance in terms of our market turnover and in terms of increasing and improving our daily trades. Besides the Nairobi Securities Exchange, on Friday morning, that is in the US market, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released the jobs data, announcing at least 311,000 non-farm payroll jobs that were added to the US economy in February, beating the expectations and suggesting continued strength of the US labor market. The unemployment rate also rose more than expected last month, increasing from 3.4% in January to 3.6% in February, as labor force statistics participation picked up. Meanwhile, February reports also showed that the wage growth moderating rate at least raised at least 0.2% last month compared to 0.3% in January. As far as the stocks are concerned, this affected the stocks slightly, with most of them ending with very few losses. S&P 500 at least lost at least 1.45%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 1.07%, and the Nasdaq shed off at least 1.76% in the Friday tradings. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for watching Smart 24 TV. My name is Anthony. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sebale. You can also follow Smart 24 TV at Smart 24 TV. And you can catch up with the latest on business here online on our website at www.smart24tv.com. You can also catch us live on our YouTube live stream at Smart24 TV, and you can get to our Twitter handle, that is at Smart24 TV, and follow us there. The show is probably brought to you by Altex East Africa. Simply dial *292# to experience the magic at Altex. See you tomorrow. Have a very wonderful day. Bye for now.